Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something really vibrant, full of energy from the classical world. Johannes Brahms' Hungarian Dances.
Ah, yes, fantastic choice. Music that just grabs you, doesn't it?
It really does. If you've ever heard classical music that makes you want to, tap your feet or just get up and move, chances are you've bumped into these.
Definitely. That folk spirit is undeniable.
And we're digging into how they came about today, drawing our insights from a really excellent article in popular Beethoven magazine. Gives a great look at these pieces.
Good source. They usually do a thorough job.
Yeah. So Brahms, right? We know him as this giant of the Romantic era, the master of, deep symphonies, intricate chamber music.
Absolute precision, profound structures.
Exactly. But with these dances, he did something quite different. Something with this raw, almost earthy energy.
He really did. It was a departure, in a way.
So our mission today is basically to unpack the story behind these 21 piano pieces. They're just pulsating with Hungarian and Romani melodies. Why did they become so iconic?
And how did they even come to be?
Right. There's a fascinating friendship involved. A sound Brahms himself called Wild and Untamed. It's quite a story.
And it's more than just a story about catchy tunes, isn't it? It's really a pivotal moment in music history.
How so?
Well, it shows how this sort of high classical art form could embrace really authentic folk traditions. It's a brilliant example of how cultural exchange can create something completely new and lasting.
That's a great point.
So as we go through this, maybe think about how, sometimes just one personal connection, one encounter can spark this monumental work that lasts for centuries.
Okay, so let's unpack that spark then. Where did it all begin?
It starts with a meeting, a pretty fateful one back in 1850.
Right, between a young Johannes Brahms and this Hungarian violinist, Romani.
That's the one. And apparently, according to the source, they hit it off almost instantly. A real musical connection from the get-go.
Romani sounds like such a character. Born Edward Hoffman in Hungary. Right.
Yes, in Miskolc. And he was a real virtuoso, trained in Vienna, top-notch technique, but also deeply committed to his Hungarian folk roots.
And the description, expressive, dark-haired, sometimes in colorful Romani-style clothes. You can just picture him embodying that vibrant culture.
Absolutely. He wasn't just playing the music. He was the music, in a sense.
And there's that amazing anecdote about their first meeting. Brahms hears Romani play and just leaps up to the piano to accompany him.
Yeah. Total strangers moments before. Imagine that connection, that unspoken musical understanding just flashing between them.
Incredible. So that instant connection, it led somewhere concrete.
It definitely did. Fast forward 3 years to 1853, and they're actually on a concert tour together across Germany.
Okay, so they took their act on the road.
They did, and it's during this tour that Romani plays this really crucial role. He introduces Brahms properly to the Czardas.
The Czardas. Explain that a bit for us.
Sure. It's a Hungarian dance form, really distinctive. It's got these fiery, syncopated rhythms, but also these dramatic mood swings. It can go from really slow and soulful to suddenly bursting into these incredibly fast, exuberant sections. Very passionate, very expressive.
And Brahms' reaction.
He was completely captivated, utterly fascinated. He specifically used that phrase, wild and untamed, to describe its quality. It just spoke to something in him.
Wow. So this tour was musically transformative for Brahms.
Absolutely. But here's the slightly strange part. Despite this huge impact, their actual partnership, their collaboration, ended pretty abruptly right after that 1853 tour.
Really? Why?
Well, the reasons are a bit murky, actually. The source mentions possibilities like disagreements over money from the tour.
The usual suspects.
Or maybe artistic differences. Some accounts suggest Romani felt maybe a bit overshadowed or underappreciated. That's not entirely clear. But the key thing is, even though they went their separate ways professionally, Romani's influence on Brahms, particularly regarding this Hungarian sound, that absolutely stuck. It was indelible.
That makes the Hungarian dances almost like a testament to that brief, intense period.
In many ways, yes.
It's worth digging into Romani himself a bit more too, isn't it? The man who brought this wild music to Brahms had an absolutely extraordinary life.
Oh, completely. Our source, the popular Beethoven magazine article, goes into some detail here, and it's quite a journey.
So we know he was born Edward Hoffman, studied in Vienna. But then things get dramatic.
Very dramatic. He gets involved in the 1848 Hungarian Revolution against Austria.
Right, and that led to him being exiled.
Exactly. He had to flee Austria, which is what actually pushed him towards Germany. And that's where, providentially, he meets this 15-year-old kid named Johannes Brahms.
Only 15. Wow.
Yeah, and introduces him to this whole world of Hungarian music. Think about the context. A political revolutionary, an exile, meets this young musical genius.
It's like something out of a novel. And then his life getting even more complicated.
It did. His activism apparently didn't stop because German authorities started pursuing him too. So in December 1849, he had to flee again, this time all the way to the United States.
Goodness. So he was in the U.S. before the Brahms tour.
Yes, briefly. Then he managed to get back to Europe in 1852, specifically setting things up for that 1853 tour with Brahms. The man was clearly driven.
Driven is one word for it. And his career after the Brahms tour? It didn't exactly slow down, did it?
Not even slightly.
Ugh.
Connecting this to the bigger picture, his talent just kept opening doors. He spent time in Weimar, studying with and becoming friends with Franz Liszt.
Liszt. Okay, so he was moving in the highest musical circles.
Absolutely. And get this. By 1854, just a year after the Brahms tour ended, he's appointed solo violinist to Queen Victoria in Britain.
Queen Victoria's violinist. That's incredible. From exile to royal courts.
Quite the turnaround. And then things got even better for him personally. In 1860, he received amnesty.
Ah, so he could finally go back to Hungary.
Yes. And when he did, he wasn't just welcomed back. He was appointed soloist to Emperor Franz Joseph.
Wow. Emperor Franz Joseph.
Yeah.
So soloist to both the British Queen and the Austro-Hungarian Emperor.
Not bad, right. But Romani, he seems to have had restless feet. He didn't just settle down.
No.
No, his later career was defined by almost nonstop international touring. He became this true global ambassador for Hungarian music. He played everywhere. France, Germany, Belgium, Holland in 1865.
Okay.
Lived in Paris for a while, then London, then moved back to the U.S. in 1879, performing all over North America, including Canada and Mexico.
He really covered the map.
He wasn't done.
Yeah.
In 1886, he embarked on a proper world tour. We're talking Japan, China, Cochin China, what's now part of Vietnam, even the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa.
That's just astonishing for that era. A truly global musician.
Completely. And his end was just as dramatic as his life, in a way. He passed away in 1898 at age 70.
Oh.
While performing a concert in San Francisco, he collapsed on stage, a musician to the very, very end.
What a life story. It really paints a picture of the kind of dynamic, maybe even volatile spirit that he brought to his music and perhaps passed on to Brahms.
You have to think some of that energy, that worldly experience seeped into the music he shared.
Definitely. Okay, so let's shift now to the dances themselves. Brahms composing them. When did this happen?
Well, the main period of composition was between 1858 and 1869, so a little while after the tour with Romani, but that influence was clearly percolating.
Right, and they came out in stages.
Yes, published in 2 sets across 4 books. The first 10 dances, books 1 and 2, were published together in 1869.
Okay.
And then the remaining 11 dances, books 3 and 4, came out later in 1880.
And the original format wasn't for orchestra, was it?
No, interestingly, they were originally written for piano 4 hands.
Ah, so 2 people at 1 piano.
Exactly. It's a really intimate setup, great for playing at home, sort of social music making. It gives a surprisingly rich sound from just one instrument.
But they became so popular, they ended up orchestrated anyway.
Oh, absolutely. Their success was immediate and huge. So Brahms himself orchestrated some of them, and he allowed others, like his friend Antonin Dvorak, to orchestrate some too. That's why we often hear them in orchestral versions today.
Right, Dvorak. That makes sense. So this brings up a really important point you touched on earlier. How much of these dances is pure Brahms and how much is borrowed?
That's a key question, and the source is clear on this. Brahms's process here was primarily one of arrangement, adaptation, and elevation. Meaning, many of the tunes themselves weren't original Brahms melodies. They were existing Hungarian folk tunes, Romani melodies, and even themes by other lesser-known Hungarian composers of the time, like Kaler Bela is mentioned. His themes apparently pop up, for example, in Dance No. 11.
Ah, okay. So he wasn't claiming these were all his original tunes.
Not at all, but, and this is the crucial, but what he did with those tunes, that's where the Brahmsian genius comes pouring in.
How so? What did he add?
Well, everything that makes them sound like Brahms, really. He took these folk melodies and drenched them in his own sophisticated harmonies. Lots of rich chords, chromaticism, those unexpected shifts in key that add such emotional depth.
I see.
And he masterfully applied those syncopated rhythms and the dramatic fast-slow contrasts he'd learned from the Zardas. He was essentially taking this authentic folk material and recasting it within a highly refined classical framework.
So blending the wild with the tamed structure of classical music.
Exactly. It's a perfect fusion. Think about Hungarian Dance No. 5 is probably the most famous one, right? In F-sharp minor.
Instantly recognizable.
It starts with that really quite melancholic, yearning melody, and then boom, it explodes into this fiery, incredibly rhythmic, syncopated section that's pure Brahms taking a folk idea and running with it.
Yeah, you can really hear that contrast.
Or, Dance No. 6, it just sparkles. It's got this playful, almost mischievous energy. Again, it shows how he could take maybe simpler folk material and elevate it, make it sophisticated, without losing its original charm or excitement.
So he was really transforming the material, not just transcribing it.
Precisely. He made them his own while honoring their roots.
Okay, putting this all together then, what's the bigger significance of these dances in music history? You said they were pivotal.
Yeah, I think they really are more than just, light, entertaining pieces, even if Brahms himself sometimes downplayed them.
Why? What was happening at the time?
Well, think about the era, the mid to late 19th century. It was the height of Romanticism, and a huge part of that was nationalism in music.
Right, composers wanting to celebrate their own cultures.
Exactly. You had composers like Dvořák in Bohemia, Smetana too, Grieg in Norway. They were all deliberately incorporating their native folk music, folk dances, folk stories into their symphonies and operas.
So Brahms was tapping into that trend.
He was, but in a slightly different way. He wasn't Hungarian, obviously. He was a German composer, steeped in the Austro-German classical tradition. So for him to take Hungarian and Romani music, which to many Western European audiences at the time sounded quite exotic, maybe even a bit rough, and bring it into the mainstream concert hall, that was quite a bold move.
And it paid off.
Massively. When that first set came out in 1869, it was an absolute sensation. The source says they sold out almost immediately. People couldn't get enough of them.
Even though Brahms apparently thought of them as light works.
Yeah, perhaps compared to his symphonies, but the public adored them. They had this immediate, visceral appeal.
Was everyone convinced, though? Any pushback?
Well, it's interesting. The source does note that some critics at the time were a bit skeptical. What's this German composer doing appropriating Hungarian styles, that kind of thing.
Okay. That debate isn't exactly new then.
Not at all. But ultimately, the sheer musical quality, the infectious energy, the brilliance of the arrangements, it just won people over. Audiences loved them. Musicians loved playing them.
And you mentioned Dvořák earlier. These dances influenced him.
Directly. Dvořák saw the huge success Brahms had with the Hungarian dances, and it partly inspired him to write his own Slavonic dances in 1878.
Which also became incredibly popular.
Hugely popular. So Brahms' success kind of paved the way. It reinforced the idea that incorporating folk idioms wasn't just acceptable and serious as classical music. It could be artistically powerful and commercially successful.
So the Hungarian dances really did act as a bridge.
Absolutely. They showcased Brahms' unique genius for taking authentic folk spirit and marrying it with sophisticated classical technique. And they proved that this kind of cultural exchange, this fusion, could create truly enduring, universally loved art.
It's amazing how that brief encounter with Romani had such far-reaching consequences.
It really is. And there are some lovely anecdotes that capture that collaborative spirit even beyond the formal tour. Yeah, the source shares one about that 1853 tour. Apparently, after a concert one night, Brahms and Romani ended up in a tavern.
Okay.
And there were Romani musicians playing violins, cembaloms, clarinets, just playing with incredible passion. And Brahms, typically reserved Brahms, supposedly couldn't resist. He sat down at the piano and just started improvising with them late into the night.
Wow. Brahms jamming with gypsy musicians in a tavern.
Apparently so. He later said that kind of impromptu session really fired his imagination, helped him grasp the essence of the music in a way formal study couldn't.
I love that image.
And Romania, for all their later differences, seemed to recognize what Brahms was doing. He's quoted as saying something like, Brahms captures the soul of Hungary, praising his ability to adapt their music so brilliantly. Those moments of connection, even if fleeting, clearly left a huge mark.
That's incredible. It really shows inspiration hitting in unexpected ways. Brahms, the serious German master, finding a vital spark in this wild tavern music.
It shatters stereotypes, doesn't it?
It really does. And that magic clearly lasts because, I mean, here we are still talking about them. The Hungarian dances are absolutely still among Brahms's most performed pieces,
Oh, constantly. Their melodies are just timeless.
and people are still arranging them,
Mm.
right, for all sorts of instruments and groups.
All the time. Full orchestras, string quartets, solo violin, solo piano, wind ensembles. Even, modern pop and jazz adaptations sometimes borrow those themes. They continue to inspire.
It is a bit bittersweet, though, thinking about Brahms and Romani. Their friendship ended, but this music, born from their connection, lives on so powerfully.
It's a lasting tribute, isn't it? A musical bridge between cultures built on a brief but incredibly potent collaboration.
Brahms' own words kind of sum it up. That quote, "The music of the Romani has a wildness that speaks to me."
Yeah. And he let that wildness speak through his own refined art, and somehow it still speaks to us today.
It really does.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to take away from this. Just consider how a connection that was actually quite short-lived, an encounter with an art form that felt so vibrant and, yes, untamed, how that could blossom into something so incredibly enduring, so universally cherished.
Mm.
And it really highlights the maybe unexpected power of cultural fusion, especially when the composer himself, maybe in a moment of modesty, just saw them as light works. What does that tell us about where true artistic weight, true inspiration really comes from?
That's a fantastic question to ponder, a really profound thought. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Brahms' Hungarian dances.
My pleasure.
And if you haven't listened to them recently, or maybe ever, I really encourage you to seek them out. Experience that amazing blend of classical depth and raw folk energy for yourself.
Definitely worth your time.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring, keep discovering, and keep listening.